The first thing we're going to do is select your person. You can use anything you want. Quick selection, magic wand, do the background, and then inverse it. All the way down to the shoulders. Once I have my selection, you're going to immediately click on the layer mask button. I'm going to title this one Model. I'm also going to take a look here and see how my selection is. You want the very best selection possible. So I'm just going to take my brush tool because I'm not 100% happy with what I did. Hearted brush. And I'm just going to clean it up. You're going to want to take a look. Whoops. Make sure on your layer mask. Whoops. And I'm just going to clean it up. Make sure you take a look. Make sure that you have everything the way that you want it. Also notice under her chin it's a little choppy. Once you're happy, I'm going to use my adjustment layer at a solid color. I'm going to make it white. Put this below my model layer. Title the background. Just so we have a nice clean slate to work with. From here, I'm going to make it black and white, and I'm going to clip it to my model layer. You can skip this step if you want to. I prefer to start off with it black and white, but that's just my opinion. You could also add a levels adjustment in here so that you could play around with it later if you need to increase your highlights or something along those lines. But I do recommend adding a levels adjustment and clipping it to that layer as well. So from here, we're going to drag our, whatever your scenery is, we're going to bring it into our new document. And we're going to resize it proportionally by holding Shift, dragging from the corner, so that it fits over top of our model. I'm going to title this one Scenery, so I know what it is. Okay, we can move that around. Next thing I'm going to do is I am going to Command clip on my model's layer mask. Right here, Command click. Notice I get my marching ants around my model. I'm then going to hit my layer mask one more time and notice that it makes a nice little silhouette with your scenery. The next thing I'm going to do from here is I'm going to switch this from normal to screen. Notice how you can see your portrait a little bit better underneath. And now while I'm clicked on my layer mask, I'm then going to pick up a black fuzzy brush because we do want to reveal our portrait details quite a bit more than we see them right now. I'm also going to drop my opacity down to about 30%. Just it's kind of a good number as you're revealing things. 30% is kind of a good number. And all I'm going to do with my black fuzzy 30% brush is I'm going to paint over where the facial features are. And you can do this as much or as little as you want. Totally up to you. Sometimes I like to go around the neck to give it a little bit more dimension. If you wanted to, you could go over any details of clothing if you wanted to. Totally up to you what you decide to do. If you want to see 100% eyes, you can do that as well. Again, you could always go back and paint with white if it's something that you don't 100% like. If you're still not sure, you can't see things well enough, you can always go back to your levels adjustment and play around and see what looks best to you. And again, you can always go back and forth between that. So to a certain extent, this is the end of a double exposure. But if you wanted to do things like erasing parts of the head, so that you can, get an outline of trees or buildings or whatever it might be, here's how you would do that. First off, if you click on the link between your scenery and your layer mask, you will have the option of moving your scenery around inside of your portrait's head. Okay, so say I want to erase this part on the side. I'm going to align my image the way that I want to do that. Maybe about here. While I'm on my scenery image layer. You can do this freehand, however, I find it's easier if you make a selection of the area that you would like to remove. So I'm just going to use my magic wand really quick. You could use quick selection, again, whatever you want. Okay, so from here we're going to go to your scenery layer mask. I'm going to pick up a black brush at 100% opacity. Doesn't matter if it's fuzzy or if it's a hard edge, it's really okay. And I'm just going to paint away inside of that selection. And what this is going to do is erase away your scenery image. And what's left over is your hair in this particular image. So we then need to go down to our model layer mask and erase the hair from that layer. So you're essentially just going to mask it out twice, erase it twice. When I deselect, there you have the back of our head erased. This works for trees, things like that. Skies are really nice things to erase from. So from here, we can do a couple different things. At this point, you would consider doing your background and what would you want to do with your background. So I'm going to show you a couple different things. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate my scenery layer, drag it below my model layer, and get rid of this layer mask right here. I'm just going to trash it, put it in the trash can, and hit delete. And with this, what I'm going to do is set it back to normal. Okay, and we can simply drop the opacity down so you can see just a portion of it in the background. We could even resize this just a little bit so it's in the background. So that's one option for you to have your background sort of faded into the back. Again, totally up to you. Okay. Another thing you can do, set this back to 100%. So you have your scenery down there, you've copied it. I'm going to go up to Filter and Blur. Say I don't want a white background, and I'm going to choose Gaussian Blur. So the Gaussian Blur, if you notice, as you increase it, it gets blurrier and blurrier. So you can blur this as much or as little as you like. But if you notice, if you go far enough, you get this really nice gradient in the background which perfectly complements your image because you're using the same colors anyway. And I'm going to click OK. And then what you can do is either use the dodge tool or use, say, a 30% white brush. And I'm just going to pick up my dodge tool with the midtones. And I'm going to sort of make a little bit of a halo effect around the edge of my portrait. Almost like a little frame. And you can do that again as little or as much as you like. I would use a big fuzzy brush for that one. My exposure is down to about, I think it's at 27. So that's another option for you. Another thing you could do if you wanted to is add a black and white adjustment layer. So you can make the entire thing black and white if you wanted to. That's absolutely an option. I'm going to turn that off for a second. You could also add a photo filter. So your photo filters give kind of like a tint to your image. You can see this one gives it a little more orangey glow. This one would give it a cooling filter, and you can adjust the density to make it stronger or less vibrant. If you wanted to have a monochromatic look, meaning all one color, You could add that black and white and notice that it only will tint it blue. You won't get any of those other colors underneath it. Say you like the sepia tone look. You would get a monochromatic look, but you would need that black and white layer. Another thing that you could do, get rid of those, is use our gradient map. So your gradient map, if we click inside of here, we get our gradient editor. And if we choose a color for all the shadow areas, and then we also choose a color in our gradient for the lighter areas, we can get some pretty neat effects. A lighter color is more preferable than doing the opposite. It looks a little strange that way. This way works a little bit better. And so those are some of your options. Again, you can leave this, you can simply leave this, you know, white in the background if you wanted to. That's absolutely an option. You could even mask out the bottom of your person so it looks like they're floating in the middle. That's always an option as well. And so there we have it, our double exposure. Good luck.